Dorian Kane's black car pulled up to the giant house on the hill. He wasn't supposed to be home today. His business trip to London had ended early, and he wanted to surprise his father. But as he pushed open the heavy front door, he heard something that made his heart stop. A woman's voice, coming from upstairs, from his father's bedroom. "Just a little more, Mr. Kane. You're doing great. Hold on to me tight." Then he heard sounds, struggling sounds, heavy breathing, his father groaning. Dorian's face turned red. His hands became fists. He took the stairs two at a time, his expensive shoes pounding on the marble steps. What was happening in his father's room? He burst through the bedroom door and froze. There was Alina, the maid, holding his father in a way that looked wrong. Samuel Kane was half out of his wheelchair, leaning against Alina's small body. Her arms were wrapped around his chest. His face was pressed close to her shoulder. They were both breathing hard. "What is going on here?" Dorian shouted. Alina's head snapped up. Her dark eyes went wide with surprise. "Mr. Dorian, you're home early. Get away from my father." Dorian rushed forward, his voice shaking with anger and something else. Fear, maybe, or disgust. Samuel tried to speak. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Didor? The stroke had stolen most of his words 6 months ago. Now he could barely say his own son's name. Let me tell you how things got this way. 6 months ago, Samuel Kane was a king. Not a real king with a crown, but a business king. He owned hotels, restaurants, and buildings all over the city. People said his name with respect. When he walked into a room, everyone stopped talking and listened. Then one Tuesday morning, while he was eating breakfast and reading the newspaper, something terrible happened inside his brain. The doctors called it a stroke. It was like a storm that broke something important in his head. When Samuel woke up in a hospital 3 days later, half of his body wouldn't work anymore. His right arm hung useless at his side. His right leg dragged when he tried to walk. Worst of all, the words in his mind got stuck before they could come out of his mouth. The proud man who once commanded boardrooms now needed help to get out of bed. Dorian hired the best doctors. He brought in therapists who cost more money in 1 hour than most people made in a week. But Samuel was stubborn. He got angry during therapy. He threw things. He cried when he thought no one was watching. The expensive therapists quit one by one. They said Samuel was difficult. They said he wasn't trying hard enough. That's when Alina stepped forward. Alina had worked in the Kane house for 3 years. She cleaned the floors, washed the windows, and made sure everything sparkled. She was 25 years old, had long black hair, she kept in a neat braid, and never complained about anything. Nobody really noticed her much before. She was just the maid. But after Samuel's stroke, something changed. Alina started spending more time in his room. At first, she just brought him water or adjusted his blankets. Then she began sitting with him during meals, patiently waiting while he struggled to move the spoon to his mouth. "Take your time, Mr. Kane," she would say softly. "There's no rush. You're doing wonderfully." She never looked at him with pity. She never sighed with impatience. She never made him feel weak. Slowly, Samuel started to trust her. When the last therapist quit, Alina asked Dorian if she could try to help with Samuel's exercises. Dorian had said yes, but only because he was desperate. He was busy running his father's company, trying to keep everything from falling apart. He needed anyone, to keep his father safe while he worked 16-hour days. He never imagined it would come to this. Now, standing in the bedroom doorway, Dorian's mind raced with terrible thoughts. His father was helpless, vulnerable. What if Alina was taking advantage of him? What if she was hurting him? What if she was after the family's money? Rich families always had to worry about people who pretended to care, but really just wanted something. I said get away from him. Dorian moved closer, his voice getting louder. "Mr. Dorian, please, you don't understand." Alina's voice was calm, but her arms stayed wrapped around Samuel. She didn't let go. "I understand perfectly." Dorian's face was now bright red. "I walk into my own house and find you with my father like this." Samuel made a desperate sound. "Nano, I'll help." But Dorian wasn't listening to his father. He was too angry, too shocked, too sure that something terrible was happening. I'm calling the police. Dorian pulled out his phone. And then I'm calling my lawyers. You're fired. You're going to jail for taking advantage of a sick old man. Please. Alina's voice finally showed fear. If you would just let me explain. Explain what? I can see what's happening with my own eyes. The room felt like it was spinning. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. He tried again to speak, but only strange sounds came out. His good hand reached toward Alina, holding on her sleeve like she was the only thing keeping him from drowning. Alina's jaw tightened. She looked Dorian straight in the eye. "Mr. Dorian," she said, her voice steady now, "your father needs to get from his wheelchair to his bed. The physical therapist didn't come today. She canceled 2 hours ago. But your father still needs his transfer exercise, or his muscles will get weaker. That's what we're doing. That's all we're doing." Dorian stopped. His finger hovered over his phone. "I don't believe you," he said, but his voice wasn't quite as sure anymore. "Then stay," Alina said. "Watch. But please, help me or get out of the way. Because right now, your father is stuck between his wheelchair and his bed, and my arms are getting tired. If I let go, he'll fall." Samuel's eyes were wide now, looking between his son and the young woman holding him up. Dorian stood frozen, his mind racing. What if he was wrong? But what if he was right? In that moment, with his father suspended between furniture and trust, Dorian had to make a choice. And he had no idea which choice would destroy his family forever. Dorian's phone slipped from his hand and clattered on the floor. He stared at Alina, at his father, at the space between the wheelchair and the bed. His brain felt foggy, like he was trying to think through thick clouds. What do you mean the therapist didn't come?" he asked slowly. Alina's arms trembled slightly under Samuel's weight. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Mrs. Rodriguez called at noon. Her daughter got sick. She had to cancel. "I left you 3 messages, Mr. Dorian. Check your phone." Dorian's eyes dropped his phone on the floor. He had turned it to silent during his flight. He hadn't checked his messages since landing. But you're not trained for this," Dorian said, his anger shifting into confusion. "You could hurt him. You could." "I've been doing this for 4 months," Alina interrupted. Her voice was patient but firm, like a teacher explaining something important. "Every day, Mrs. Rodriguez taught me everything. The stretches, the transfers, how to hold him safely, where to put my hands, how to move so neither of you gets hurt." Samuel made a sound. "True. Ollie good girl." Dorian felt his chest tighten. For months, his father had been doing therapy exercises with the maid for 4 months, and he didn't know? Why didn't anyone tell me? Dorian's voice came out quieter now, almost like a child asking why he wasn't invited to a party. Alina shifted Samuel's weight carefully. "I tried, Mr. Dorian, but you're always at meetings, always on calls, always flying somewhere. When was I supposed to tell you?" The words hit Dorian like cold water. She was right. He was never home. After his father's stroke, Dorian had buried himself in work. It was easier to handle business problems than to watch his strong father struggle to lift a spoon. "Mr. Dorian," Alina's voice grew urgent. "I really need help. Can you please take his other side? We need to get him to the bed. My arms won't hold much longer." Dorian looked at his father's face. Samuel's eyes were pleading now. Scared. Not scared of Alina. Scared of falling. Scared of being a burden. Scared of his own body that no longer listened to his commands. Dorian stepped forward. His expensive suit brushed against a wheelchair as he moved to his father's left side. "What do I do?" "Put your arm around his waist." "Yes, like that." "Good. Now we're going to take 3 steps together. Small steps. I'll count. 1, 2, 3. They moved together, all 3 of them like one strange, connected creature. Samuel's feet dragged, but Dorian and Alina held him steady. When they reached the bed, Alina gave more instructions. "Now we turn him. Gently. Let him sit on the edge first." "Perfect. Mr. Kane, you're doing wonderful." Samuel sat on the bed's edge, breathing hard. His good hand patted Alina's arm. Thank you. Dorian stood back, watching. Something was breaking inside his chest. Not breaking in a bad way, breaking like ice breaks in spring, letting water flow again. I'm sorry, he whispered. Alina, I'm so sorry. I thought. You thought I was hurting him. Alina finished. She wasn't angry, just tired. I know what it looked like. Why do you do this? Dorian asked suddenly. Taking care of him isn't your job. You're paid to clean, not to be a nurse. You could get hurt. My father isn't. He isn't easy. Why do you stay? Alina was quiet for a moment. She helped Samuel lie back on his pillows, adjusting them carefully behind his head. Then she pulled the blanket up to his chest, smoothing it with gentle hands. When I first came to this house, she said softly, I was scared. I had just moved to this country. I barely spoke English. I had no family here, no friends. I was completely alone. Samuel's eyes were fixed on her face, listening. Your father found me crying in the kitchen one day. Alina continued. I had broken an expensive vase. I thought I would be fired, but Mr. Kane sat down at the kitchen table with me. He said, mistakes happen. We fix them and move forward. Then he asked me about my life, where I came from, what I dreamed about. He talked to me like I mattered, like I was a real person, not just a maid. Tears started rolling down Alina's cheeks, but she kept talking. He helped me sign up for English classes. He paid for them. When my mother got sick back home, he gave me money to send her to the hospital. He never asked me to pay it back. He said, family takes care of family. Dorian felt his own eyes burning. He didn't know any of this. His father had never mentioned it. So when he got sick, Alina said, and everyone else gave up on him, I couldn't. I won't. He didn't give up on me when I needed help. How could I give up on him? Samuel was crying now, too, tears sliding down the side of his face that still worked properly. His good hand reached for Alina's, and she took it gently. You're not my boss, Mr. Kane. Alina whispered to him. You're my friend, and friends don't abandon each other. Dorian had to sit down. His legs felt weak. He sank into the chair by the window, the chair where Alina must sit every day, watching over his father. I've been a terrible son, Dorian said, his voice breaking. I've been so busy with the company, with keeping everything running that I forgot about him, about what he needs, about who he is. He understands, Alina said gently. He knows you're trying to save everything he built. That matters to him. But Mr. Dorian, your father doesn't need you to save his company right now. He needs you to see him. See him? When was the last time Dorian had really looked at his father? Really talked to him? Not about business or doctors or therapy, but just talked? Suddenly, Samuel made an urgent sound. His face twisted with effort. Dorian, what is it, Dad? Dorian jumped up, worried. Samuel's mouth worked hard, pushing out each word like lifting heavy rocks. Proud of you? Dorian's careful control shattered. He dropped to his knees beside the bed and took his father's weak hand. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I should have been here. I should have... Samuel shook his head firmly. His good hand squeezed Dorian's with surprising strength. No, you perfect, good boy. He talks about you all the time, Alina said quietly. Every day, he asks when you're coming home. He's so proud of how hard you work. He just misses you. Dorian looked up at Alina through his tears. Teach me, he said. Teach me how to do the exercises. How to help him. I want to learn. Please. Alina smiled, a real, warm smile that lit up her whole face. I would be honored. For the next hour, Alina showed Dorian everything. How to help Samuel stretch his weak arm. How to massage the muscles that got tight. How to encourage him to try speaking. Celebrating every word he managed to push out. The trick, Alina explained, is patience. And never, ever making him feel ashamed. He's still the same strong man inside. His body just doesn't work the same way anymore. But his mind is sharp. His heart is huge. He's still Mr. Samuel Kane. Dorian watched how gently Alina worked with his father, how she laughed at his jokes, even when they came out as jumbled sounds that only she seemed to understand. How she celebrated tiny victories, like Samuel lifting his weak arm 3 inches higher than yesterday. This wasn't just care. This was love. As the afternoon sun started to set, painting the room gold and orange, Samuel fell asleep, exhausted from the exercises. His face looked peaceful for the first time in months. Dorian and Alina stood by the window, looking out at the garden below. "I almost destroyed this," Dorian said quietly. "If I had called the police like I threatened, if I had fired you. But you didn't," Alina said. "You stopped. You listened. That takes courage, too. What can I do to make this right?" Dorian asked, "How can I fix what I almost broke?" Alina thought for a moment. "Mrs. Rodriguez is good, but she can only come 3 times a week. Your father needs help every day. Maybe we could find someone else to come on the other days? And the equipment in this room is old. There are better tools now that could help him get stronger." "Done," Dorian said immediately. "Whatever he needs, whatever you need. Money is no problem." "It's not about money, Mr. Dorian," Alina said gently. "It's about showing up, being here, letting your father know that he matters more than any business meeting." Dorian nodded slowly. She was right. She was so very right. From the bed, Samuel stirred. His eyes opened, looking at his son and the woman who had saved his dignity. He smiled, a crooked smile because half his face still didn't work right, but a real smile full of love. In that moment, Dorian made a promise to himself. Things were going to change, but he had no idea that the real test was still coming. The next morning, Dorian woke up early. For the first time in 6 months, he didn't rush to his office. Instead, he went straight to his father's room. Alina was already there, opening the curtains to let the sunshine in. Samuel was awake, watching the birds outside his window. "Good morning," Dorian said softly. Both Alina and Samuel turned to look at him with surprise. Dorian was never home in the mornings. "I cleared my schedule today," Dorian explained. "I want to spend it here, with Dad. If that's okay?" Samuel's face broke into that crooked smile again. Yes, good." Over breakfast, Dorian sat with his father and really watched him. He noticed how Samuel's hand shook when he reached the cup, how hard he concentrated on every bite, how frustrated he got when food slipped off his spoon. But Dorian also noticed something else. He saw the determination in his father's eyes, the way he refused to give up even when things were hard. The same strength that had built a business empire was still there, now fighting a different kind of battle. "You're still the strongest person I know, Dad," Dorian said quietly. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. He reached across the table with his good hand and squeezed Dorian's fingers. After breakfast, Alina taught Dorian more exercises. They worked together, one on each side of Samuel, helping him practice standing. It was hard work. Samuel's legs trembled. Sweat poured down his face. But he kept trying. "Good, Mr. Kane." Alina encouraged. 5 more seconds. "You can do it. 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent." When Samuel sat back down, exhausted but proud, Dorian felt something he hadn't felt in months. "Hope, Dad's getting stronger," Dorian said, amazed. "I can see the difference from just yesterday." Alina smiled. "He works hard every single day. He never gives up, just like he taught me." Over the next few weeks, Dorian kept his promise. He came home earlier from work. He hired 2 more therapists to work with Samuel on the days Mrs. Rodriguez couldn't come. He bought new equipment, special bars to help Samuel practice walking, a better wheelchair, even a fancy computer that helped Samuel communicate when his words got stuck. But more importantly, Dorian was just there, present, really seeing his father. They started having dinner together every night. Samuel couldn't say much, but Dorian talked about his day, asked for advice, even though the answers came out jumbled, and just enjoyed being with his dad. Alina became less like an employee and more like family. She ate dinner with them. She laughed at their jokes. She told stories about her childhood in her home country, and Samuel and Dorian listened with real interest. One evening, about a month after that terrible misunderstanding, something amazing happened. They were in the living room. Samuel was in his wheelchair, but he suddenly gripped the armrest with both hands, even his weak one. I want to... Samuel's face scrunched up with effort. Take your time, Dad. Dorian said gently, using the patient voice he'd learned from Alina. I want to stand at window. Alina and Dorian exchanged glances. Samuel hadn't tried to stand on his own request before. The therapist always had to convince him to do his exercises. Are you sure? Alina asked. It's been a long day. You might be tired. Samuel's jaw set stubbornly. Want to stand. Like man. Tears sprang to Dorian's eyes, but he blinked them away. Okay, Dad, let's do it. Alina and I will help you. They positioned themselves on either side of Samuel. On the count of 3, they helped him rise. His legs shook terribly. His weak side wanted to collapse. But Samuel gritted his teeth and held on. You're doing it, Dad. Dorian said, You're standing. Look at you, Mr. Kane. Alina added, So strong. Samuel took one shaky step forward, then another, with Alina and Dorian supporting him. He made it all the way across the room to the big window that looked out over the garden. See, Samuel said, his voice clearer than it had been in months. See, garden still beautiful. They stood there together, the 3 of them, watching the sunset paint the sky pink and gold. Samuel was standing on his own 2 feet, held up by love and determination. I'm so proud of you, Dad, Dorian whispered. Proud of you, too, Samuel managed. Good son. In that moment, Dorian understood something important. His father didn't need him to be perfect, didn't need him to run the company flawlessly or make millions of dollars. Samuel just needed Dorian to be there, to care, to try. That night, after Samuel was asleep, Dorian sat with Alina in the kitchen drinking tea. I almost ruined everything, Dorian said. When I came home that day and saw you with Dad, I was so ready to believe the worst. Why do we do that? Why do we assume the bad things instead of looking for the good? Alina stirred her tea thoughtfully. Fear, she said simply. When we're scared of losing something we love, we see danger everywhere, even where it doesn't exist. I was scared, Dorian admitted. Scared of my father being weak. Scared of losing him. Scared that I couldn't fix what was broken. So I hid in my work and pretended everything would be okay if I just ignored it. But you didn't ignore it forever, Alina pointed out. When it mattered most, you stopped. You listened. You learned. That's what counts. Dorian looked at this young woman who had taught him so much about courage and kindness. Thank you, Alina, for everything. For taking care of Dad when I couldn't. For not giving up on him. For not giving up on our family. Alina smiled. He's worth it. You both are. I'm giving you a raise, Dorian said suddenly. A big one. And I'm changing your title. You're not a maid anymore. You're your Dad's companion, his care coordinator, whatever you want to be called. You deserve so much more than we've given you. I don't do this for money, Mr. Dorian, Alina said softly. I know, Dorian replied. That's exactly why you deserve it. Months passed. Samuel continued to improve. He would never be exactly like he was before the stroke. The doctors had made that clear. But he got stronger. He could walk short distances with a cane. His words came easier. He smiled more. The Kane house, which had felt cold and empty for so long, became warm again, filled with laughter and hope and the sound of family. Dorian learned to balance work and home. He realized that his father's company would survive. It was strong because Samuel had built it strong. But his relationship with his father, that was fragile. That needed daily care and attention, just like Samuel's exercises. One Sunday afternoon, almost a year after that terrible misunderstanding, the 3 of them sat in the garden. Samuel was in his wheelchair, but he'd walked there himself with some help. The sun was shining. Birds were singing. Everything felt peaceful. Happy. Samuel asked, looking at his son. Yes, Dad. Dorian said honestly, I'm happy. Are you? Samuel nodded. His speech was much better now, though still slow. Very happy. Have. Good son. Good friend. He patted Alina's hand. Good family, Alina added, smiling at them both. Samuel raised his cup of lemonade with his once weak hand. It shook slightly, but he held it steady. To family. To second chances. They clinked their cups together. Dorian thought about that awful day when he'd burst into his father's room, full of anger and suspicion. How close he'd come to destroying everything good in his life. How easily pride and fear had almost blinded him to the truth. He'd learned something important. Things aren't always what they seem. Sometimes what looks like something bad is actually something beautiful. Sometimes the people we overlook are the very ones holding everything together. And sometimes the greatest strength isn't in never falling down. It's in letting people help you back up. As the afternoon sun warmed their faces, Dorian made a silent promise. He would never take this for granted again. Not his father. Not Alina. Not the gift of being present in the moments that mattered. Because in the end, that's what family really means. Not perfection. Not never making mistakes. But showing up, listening, believing in each other, and choosing love over fear every single time. Samuel squeezed his son's hand with his strong grip. The grip that come back through hard work, patience, and the love of people who refuse to give up. Love you, son, Samuel said clearly. I love you too, Dad, Dorian replied, his voice thick with emotion. Alina smiled at them both, these two men who had changed her life and whose lives she had changed in return. And in that perfect moment, everything was exactly as it should be. What would you have done in Dorian's place? Have you ever judged someone too quickly and regretted it later? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart and taught you something about not judging others too quickly, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Subscribe for more powerful stories about family, forgiveness, and finding the truth beneath the surface. Every story we share can change someone's perspective, maybe even save a relationship. Remember, the greatest mistakes happen when we judge what we see before we understand what we're looking at. Always give people a chance to explain. Always look for the good. Always choose love over fear. Thank you for reading. Which part of this story moved you the most? Let us know in the comments.